I don't even know what our podcast name is anymore. Investor Syndicate, I guess.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Here we go. Oh, that's all right.
All right, welcome to the Investor Syndicate podcast, where we empower real estate investors with the tools that they need to win. We got my good boy, Josh Blackwell, in the house.
I appreciate it.
Welcome on board,
Thanks,
bro. So we're excited to dive in, guys. Really just wanted to open up the discussion and talk about how to stay ahead of this shifting real estate market. Because if you look across the board, there's a lot of blood that's starting to come in the streets. Most people aren't seeing it yet, but there's a lot of distress. The dominoes are starting to tip. But before we get started, man, I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the time to be able to come out and be on the podcast, man.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, I'll introduce myself. Josh Blackwell. I'm with an actual private money lender across the U.S. called Fund That Flip. We provide a lot of lending for, investors like yourself, good, operators that, invest in different fix and flip, properties that you want to buy and hold, or you want to, put them on the general market, fix and flip sales. And then also we do new construction. It's become one of our newer things in the past couple of years that's really taken off, especially in the economy we've had for the past 3 years. So, hopefully, we keep expanding. We've gone from starting out 2013-14 to about $100 million in lending to $2 billion.
That's incredible.
So we're growing consistently, and it's all about the relationships we build. Really, you
love
can
it.
be a lending, but it's also the relationship.
Yeah, it really is, man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your progression in the real estate industry, where it started, and then how it progressed over the past several years.
Yeah, so how it progressed is, I started out of college. I went and worked for, the corporate structured jobs and started, I worked at a company called JW Aluminum in Goose Creek, South Carolina, because I'm originally from Charleston. I started there and I worked on the floor, actually, and they wanted me to learn the process. And before you knew it, I moved into supply chain and purchasing. Learned a lot about chemistry and for metal, and, then I moved over to Cummins Diesel. I worked for them for about 2.5 years, and then I left there. I actually worked for Volvo Cars as a buyer for procurement, and I bought a lot of different types of materials. And so mainly a lot of my experience was in supply chain, which helped me kind of convert into the role of real estate, because it is a supply chain game.
Yeah. Especially in today's economy.
Oh, yeah. If you're not staying on top of it, it will catch you.
Yeah.
So, I started out at a business partner at a time. I invested in some small flips there in Charleston area. Charleston market, you see it. It's every market, I feel like, in the Southeast. From about 2019, 2020, everything started to just
explode.
Right, and it just hit this bubble. It skyrocketed. 20% increases on properties.
Yeah.
Something we've never seen, in a long time. So, I started doing that, and then before you knew it, I went down to Jacksonville, Florida. We built, spec homes with a general contractor, and now I do, some general flips here in the Charleston market, and also a few new construction projects.
Oh, that's a pretty lengthy resume. It's a lot of experience, man. Like everything from, sounds like project management, right?
Yeah.
Like sourcing, lining up your materials, buying the materials, figuring out what you need, supply chain, lining it up. Like it really is a perfect segue to lead into the real estate industry.
Yeah. I feel like if you're not organized, it's a very hard, segment, sector of the infrastructure of the U.S. in terms of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Being in real estate it's so dynamic. You got to be able to pivot quick, and make decisions, right? So, same with you, right? You've been in this now for what, 5, 6 years?
5.5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, bro. I'm not the most organized person.
Yeah.
I'm a true visionary. Like I'm 30,000 feet above, heads in the clouds, right? Just big dreaming, trying to stay ahead of the ball. But in many cases, I get stuck in the clouds, right? I'm dreaming. And sometimes the organization piece and the follow through. That's why I got to surround myself with like a power team that can really fill in the weaknesses.
Well, that comes with that growth we talked about, right?
Yeah.
So you starting out small, you buy a couple flips, and you're like, hey, I want to go a volume route. Now you're having to build the team around you to hit that volume.
Yeah.
And that comes into place with individuals like ourselves as a lender, your admin side, everything to make that well-oiled machine continue to turn,
Yeah.
right? And generate enough as you just keep going.
So where did the bridge happen that you went from flipping houses, new construction, to actually partnering up and working for a lending institution?
Yeah, so first lender I used was out of Atlanta, Ground Floor. I used them, and then I met the individual that was in my current role, and he talked to me, kind of sold me on the prop that we go off of, the relationship side, building that trust with, borrowers, builders, whoever it is, and I remember him coming to me saying, I can close your deals in 7 days. I said, well, I want to see it to believe it, because I've never seen something close fast.
Yeah.
In terms of that, unless you got a rich uncle next door that can give you
Right.
$600,000. They did it. They closed it, everything. So I bought in, and when I bought in, well, probably about 6 months later, that individual ended up resigning. So he asked me, "Are you interested in this role?"
He reached out to you?
Yes. Him and I had a pretty good relationship. That's what it's about: is building a relationship, people trusting you that you're going to be able to, push through.
Yeah.
And you're going to come through for them, and that's the main thing in this market, right? I mean, a lot of guys are trusting, especially in the wholesaling side. A lot of wholesalers are trusting that the buyer, the investor, on the other side, that's going to take it either fix and flip, buy and hold, whatever they're going to do with it, is going to come through on that sales side. That they're going to close the deal. And once you gain that trust, they know, hey, my guy Ben's going to close it.
Yep.
It's the same with us. We know that the guys and girls that are going out and buying these properties, that that they're going to be able to execute and keep pushing forward. And that's what we're there to do, is to help them grow.
You got to do what you say you're going to do in the
Exactly.
simplest form.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Be a person of your word. That's awesome. So let's talk about the shifting real estate market, right? Obviously, a lot of people, including us, we're having to pivot, right, to stay on the forefront of it. And I've realized that some of the best people in business, the way that they're staying ahead is that they're anticipating several moves before what's in front of them,
Yes.
right? And so now is the most important time, more than ever in the past 5-10 years, right, to really figure out where is the ball going, right? And obviously we don't have a crystal ball. No one really knows how far down the market might go or what might happen. But we do know that interest rates are rising, and they're going to continue to rise, right? I've heard people talking between 8 and 9% before the end of this year. So where do you see the real estate market in the big picture of things going?
Well, where I see it going, really, it's all going to be a regional approach. There's
Yep.
a nation look at it as interest rates are rising. Yes, we understand the reason why these interest rates are rising on capital is to slow inflation. And the Fed's pretty much made it a realization that they will continue to rise until they see the data showing a curbing of that inflation. But as we all know, prices have never really gone backwards. They continue to rise. Okay, and at one point I'd spoken to a guy that, not trying to get really off track, but if you look at the car market, you look at the auto market and how things have worked. We've gone from a pickup truck that was $25,000 to $50,000 to $70,000, and where that all comes down to is different levers can be pulled. You walk into a dealership, they're saying, where does your payment need to be? Okay, and this is all going to correlate into the correction of the market, or per se, right? A lot of buyers, it's a psychological thing, is they're looking at, what is my monthly payment? Does it fit into my income, the scope of what I make every day, every month? Is it going to can I make that payment? So they're not really looking as 8%, right? So it's going to come down to multiple different factors, is the price of the house, whatever. But in the auto market, the reason why it's continued to be artificial inflation is because you walk into a dealership, they say, what does your payment need to be? It needs to be $700 a month. I'm just throwing a number, right? Okay. No problem. So they look at the price of the car. You notice the price of the car never comes down. They say, what about some cash down? Well, I could put a couple $1,000s down. They work you there. Then the next step is to move towards interest rate. What can I get on your interest rate? We credit subpar, say 650, 660. We can get you a 7% interest rate. All right. Well, your payment now at 48 months is actually $900. So what they do is they say, well, what about a longer payment? So they come up with a structure to move from a 48-month payment down to a 84-month payment now, to make your payment look so good to you that you're willing to sign up for that. It's the same way this correction is going to happen, is you're going to see the payments are going to get too high for normal incomes. You're going to have to reduce the house price maybe, okay, because interest rates aren't going to come down.
Yep.
You're only capped at a 30-year mortgage, so your pricing reduction will need to come down 5 to 10%. So when you're buying projects now, when you're going to source those projects, say off market, whatever, you need to take that into effect that there is probably a correction of that. I don't think there's a market tanking.
Yep.
07, 08 was different. You had a lot of predatory lending going on, people getting money that 100% debt to income ratios. Now I think it's 46 or 47% based off of guidelines.
Yep.
A lot of people have a lot of equity in their houses now. Most people have 3% or under interest rates. People have more money in the bank. A lot more flexibility there. The millennial group is moving up.
Plus the demand that's just flooding
Yes.
the southeastern United States,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. Geographically, it's going to be kind of in its own little zones.
That's a good point.
It will
Regional,
be.
yeah.
It'll be a regional approach. I mean, it's
So you got like New York City up here where everyone's just running away. They're fleeing communism. And you got Cali and, this side of the country where regulations and being right up on top of your neighbors, there's obviously people are running away from there. And people are running out to the southeastern Sun Belt part of the United States, right? God's country.
well, and understand this too. In California at the time, right now in California, there are guidelines being put in for flippers to where you have to pay an additional tax to flip the house.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to stop flipping. That is going to stop. So what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot of dilapidated houses that can't be fixed because it's not worth it to an investor.
Yeah.
FHA won't give you the loan because it doesn't pass CO 100s or it doesn't pass this inspection, whatever the case. VA, whomever it is, they're not going to pass it. Most lenders that are on a 30-year mortgage are going to want the CO 100 document. I mean, all of them. It's kind of a guideline.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't pass any of those tests, they're not going to give you the money. So the only person that can buy it is private money, individuals like ourselves that go out and invest. But you're not going to do it when you have this.
Yeah, they're
situation.
whacking you. So
Yeah.
basically, cancel that for parking your money, right? You want to park your money somewhere where you know it's safe and secure, and there's not all kinds of crazy policies that try to take it
Exactly.
away from you, right?
Exactly. And you're seeing about, over the past 10 years, almost 800,000 people move out of California into Texas. Okay?
Mhm.
So the Austin, Texas market picked up. Dallas market picked up really well. Austin's seeing a little bit of a hit right now. You're seeing a little bit of a correction in Austin. Don't really know why, but Dallas is still strong. Houston,
Yeah.
any of those areas. And it has to do with policies.
It does.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever. It matters about, if you want to be in this business, about what the policies around you and where you're investing at.
Yep.
Money doesn't look at both any party.
The thing about business is you can uproot and move just about anywhere, especially
Exactly.
in this virtual world that we live in, right?
Exactly.
Driven by supply chain, everything else, and technology, right? But you can literally, if COVID didn't prove anything else, it's that you can work from home in front of a laptop, right? Like Zoom stock exploded, and this new virtual workforce is just, it's now like a common trend
Yes.
that people accept as common business practice. So it's going to be really interesting to look like the big picture, seeing where things go. But to kind of rein it back in, man, let's talk about regional, right? We've seen a lot of institutional money, right? Big money, hedge funds, cash buyers, people that are relocating from up north, and they're just dumping money into the southeastern Sun Belt, right? So to your point, I'm glad you touched on the regional specific buy box point, because that's what it is, right? And thank goodness for local municipalities and local policies that can help, structure and sustain growth. But man, this is our hot zone, right? Like,
It is.
I don't see us getting
Well,
too
and
big of a
everything
hit.
stems from the approach of where's your buy box? Who is buying what in these areas? Who's moving these areas? Because, I know we spoke about it before, in 08, 07, the luxury market was the first thing to go, right? So, of course, in Charleston, there is a lot of luxury down on the coast that are ranging over $2-3 million. So, capital, a lot of times they don't, when these interest rates rise like that, to get a little squirmy on those type of houses. A lot of those people that are buying those houses are fleeing from New York
Yeah.
in those areas because an average cost of a house there is over $1 million. So when they come down, this is nothing to them. And especially if they can keep their job
Yep.
that's in New York pay salary and come to Charleston, it's a win-win for them, right? Less property taxes, one. I'll give you an example. My next door neighbor is from Chicago. He told me I paid $500,000 for a house there or something. It was somewhere around that range. And he said my property tax is $12,000 a year. you can't sustain off that. I mean, average tax down there about $2,000 or so or more for a $500,000 house. So you can sustain that. And he also kept his job in Chicago and went remote. So you're seeing a big drastic shift there because of technology. Technology is making our lives better, and it makes it worse in some ways too.
Yeah.
So it has its pros and cons.
So let's look at, what tightening up on the lending side really looks like, right? So I don't know exactly to a T what we're looking at, but let's just say somebody that qualified for $530,000 mortgage at, we'll say 2.5% interest, right? That same borrower in today's market where interest, what are rates, about 7% right now?
They're about 7, yeah.
At 7%, the person that qualified for $530,000 house today, would you say what? Maybe
so
300,000.
Every quarter percent is generally about $30,000 in buying power lost.
So we're looking at 120 per percentage.
$300,000 now.
Yeah, so that's roughly cut it in half.
It's cut in half. You pretty much cut that. You slim that up.
300K if you're lucky,
Yeah.
right? Like literally, you're looking at somebody that qualified for a $530,000 house 5 months ago that barely qualifies for $300 or below $250,000 house in today's market. That in its simplest form should show you how much we've squeezed the liquidity and the money out of the market, right? Which really tightens up things at a pretty big scale.
Well, what it does is, you're starting to see permits, the pulling of permits slowing down. So what they're hoping that the supply chain catches back up, and that when the supply chain does catch back up, that pricing will come down because it's a supply versus demand. But my issue is if you look at the national economy, how it's been forever. I'll always use the example of bread, right? You used to buy a loaf of bread for a quarter back how long ago? I remember as a kid, I'm not that old, I'm only in my 30s. You could buy a loaf of bread for 80-something cents a loaf.
Yeah.
Now it's 3 to 4. And has it ever gone backwards? It's never gone backwards. So these prices, when people think that there's going to be just mass, I have a lot of friends that are, hey, I'm going to wait till the market corrects itself, or I'm going to wait till this. I said, pricing's not going to really go down.
Yeah.
If you look at historical data, 5 to 10%. Like even during a recession, I don't know the Columbia market as well, but in Charleston, the highest you saw was maybe in the West Ashley market. It was about 10 to 12%. And that was during a big recession. That was like cataclysmic in 07, 08. We're not in that situation. I think this is the federal government's trying to find this soft landing spot. I don't think there's really a soft landing spot. You're already actually in a recession.
Yep.
We didn't have positive GDP growth in the last quarter. So we are already in a recessionary period. It's just how bad is it? And I think there's so much money in the market, and it's a different type of market today that I don't see a collapse. I see a correction.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
It's going to be interesting, man. So for your typical investor, right? I know investors have many different shapes and sizes, but for a real estate professional, real estate investor that treats this as a full-time business, what is the most, and again, it breaks down regional, right? In our current market, southeastern United States, where do you see being the safest play to execute your time and resources?
Multifamily is always big, right? If you can get the right play, it all comes down to the numbers. Every time you buy a deal, you need to look at the ARV, look around at, properties that are of similarity. They're within about 10 to 15% square footage differences. Don't go like, oh, I got a 3,000 square foot house, mine's 2, and I'm comparing against it. You're going to get killed on that, right?
Yep.
Because higher square footage, lesser amount, generally. So try to find some similarity that's sold within the last 30, 90 days. If you can get it, some 120, just depends on the market, and once you do that, take a little bit off. Like, don't say, oh, I'm going to push the market because I got 360 for this house. Say I'm going to get 330. Be conservative. And so when you go to buy it, you can look at what do you want to pay for that house and make sure there's enough margins in there to be safe. Because the worst case scenario, great part about real estate versus a stock market is you have a physical asset. It's not like Bitcoin where you throw the money and somebody sends out a mean tweet and you lose $25,000. Worst case is you put a note on it. You got a monthly mortgage payment. There's a lot more renters than there are buyers. Put that renter in the house, and if the market comes, when it swings back again in your favor, put the house back on the market.
It's tangible. It's something you can see, you can feel it, you can live in it.
Yes.
It's got to be one of the safest investments on the planet.
If you look
right?
at most of your billionaires, even the grocery chains don't make money off of the groceries. It's in real estate.
Yeah.
They own the whole complex, and they're charging lease rent to all of these commercial spots because they know it's safe. You can't take it away. Groceries, they go up and down. They barely make anything off that. It's all real estate. If you look at any of the big companies, you got offshore money coming in that are buying our own single-family residential. You have the Chinese
by
who
the
spend
boatloads,
$6-7 billion in single-family rentals. Okay, so there's always a play in real estate, and even in the United States and other countries. I would say the laws are a lot stricter.
Yeah.
They allow squatters. They allow a lot of things that we wouldn't allow in the United States.
Yep.
Certain states might allow it, but I know South Carolina, one, would not allow that.
Yep.
You would hope. But, I think a lot of people were scared after the moratorium stuff, and they were scared that they couldn't evict tenants because they weren't paying their bills.
It's terrifying, bro.
It's very terrifying. But I feel like rental properties are still there for you. There's always going to be room for rental property.
Yep. Absolutely.
It all comes down to the numbers at the end of the day.
Yep.
There's nothing else to it. I would tell, advise like investors, the real estate market goes in a cyclical.
Yeah.
So if you decide, I'm just starting out, I don't want to do it because interest rates, well, then you'll never get a start.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just be straight with you. You'll never get a start because it's going to always scare you. The news and the articles will always scare you because, that's kind of the goal of the media sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's to try to slow this demand, slow some of these things that are happening. But without investors like ourselves or some of these houses they would fall to the ground. There would be nothing. You can't keep the economy growing without it. I mean, construction, anything in real estate makes up 35-40% of our economy.
Yeah.
Or more. I could tell you probably more. And then you got automotive, manufacturing, all that makes up the rest. So if that falls, just telling you, if real estate falls, automotive goes with it, everything goes with it.
So, looking at the cycle of things, and if there's one thing that I've realized, man, over the past couple of years, just with all the fear, pandemonium, doubt, the media pumping stuff in, right? They sell you on the news. And really, when I look at the news, as crazy as it sounds, man, it's like I'm trying to see the silver lining behind the news, right? Like whose agenda is behind what we're being sold at the moment, right? And the fear and pandemonium that pumps and, infiltrates the markets. And it's not hard to see that we're coming out of a massively manipulated market across the board, right? Like the free money, like basically free money, just printing free money, like it's going out of style, right? Handing over PPP loans, EIDL, stimulus checks, like it's almost like, dopamine hits just to keep the people, just enough to kind of keep them reliant on the system. It goes deep.
It is, and I understand why at the first we gave the stimulus money, but then it kept going and going. There was only so much you can push into the system. Now when you print all of that money, which is trillions of dollars, and our national debt, which, you always wonder, who do we owe $30 trillion to, right? We owe the economy $30 trillion. Our kids, our grandkids owe that money.
But you got billions that donate for some cause, right?
Yes. And 75 cents of the dollar probably never gets there.
Yeah. So
it happens all the time. It's been found. I mean, those, you can call it conspiracy, whatever, it happens. But, when we look at the overall economy with the stimulus, the first checks, yes, need to be happening because they shut the economy down. You got to keep it going. But at the same time, a lot of people started staying out of work. And two reasons, right? Yes, some can live off that little bit of money that was given out in stimulus. They're used to that. And that's fine. But the second part is I think people had time to really sit back and think about their lives and say, do I really want to keep doing the 9 to 5?
Yep.
Do I really want to keep doing these things? Do I want to keep doing the things that I've been doing for 30 years? Or do I want to go out and make a difference and change my generational wealth? So I think that's what actually happened. And hate to say it, I mean, I work for a lending company. We're a great company, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's more of the other companies that have taken advantage of their workers.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's coming back full fold. It's coming back to a point where, they're wanting better respect. They're wanting more opportunities, and they didn't get them when that time comes, and now it's changed in their favor.
Yeah.
So I have nothing against that, but, there's a lot of other factors that go into a lot of things that are happening right now.
Business just got so easy, right? Like
Yes.
I call it unicorn season, where anyone could step in. But now that the tide's going out, right, we're really going to see what that looks like. But when, it's like the triangle, all this money that was printed, we are standing in the middle of the largest separation of wealth in history. Like it's happening right now, right in front of our eyes. And it's not that wealth is getting destroyed, it's just changing hands, right? It's just kind of shifting. But all the money, in most cases, when the money gets printed, it still ends up flowing back up, right? It's an interesting system to see how it works, right? But you got the 1%, the wealthy up top, and you got all the worker ants, right? I had an interesting little metaphor that crossed my mind a couple months ago, and was like, man, we can continue playing in the single family real estate space, right? And it's great, quick little come ups, right? Quick little flips and make some money, which just, translate to like a dopamine hit. But the big picture, this gap is getting larger. And for us, speaking for myself, if we don't shift right to the bigger plays, like start trading multifamily units and the bigger deals, then you're going to be a worker ant, right? Little worker ant, feeding the colony for the rest of your life, right? Just like working, bringing some bread back to the little ant hole.
Well, and that's the thing, is I think it's been ingrained in the American mindset of work. I don't know who came up with the 9 to 5. I don't know if it was Henry Ford.
Came out of the industrial age,
out
right?
Of that age of you Monday through Friday, you're working 8 to 5. And now jobs have actually changed. It's 9 to 6. You don't get a paid lunch. Your lunch
That's crazy.
You don't get paid lunch anymore. A lot of jobs you're working way more hours, right? And it gets to a point where you work too many hours, the taxes are even higher on that income. So it's pointless sometimes. And people feel beat up over that. So they're making changes. I'm seeing a lot in the real estate. And a lot of it had to do with the real estate market got really easy for 2 years. I mean, you could put something on for sale by owner and it'd be gone in a day. Now it's changed. You're going to have to work. You're going to have to do more things to make it more, more glamour to it, to where a buyer's going to want to buy it and that you've got them locked in. So you got to take advantage of multiple different factors when you're selling these homes. But I say, overall, American workers, I think they just found better options. Computers have gotten so advanced now, and things have gotten so advanced. You got people doing Uber, the DoorDashes, all that stuff, and they're able to knock it out, do that, and another little part-time job, and still made what they were doing to have a lot of freedom. I think people are starting to get to that minimalist mentality. Like, do I need the big cars? Do I need the glamour? They see all this stuff on TV that's not true. And they're like, I want to go be a minimalist, and I want my freedom more than I want to buy materialistic goods. So it's changed a lot.
Technology's also bridged the gap, right? We have, I call it like the corporate veil, right? This big wall that was kind of built up between the big corporations and the government or whatever, big business owners, and everyone else. People that came up in the industrial age, right, that have been taught to work for the system, right? Trade your whole life working a 9 to 5 with the hope that you can retire and get a pension at the end of it, right? And then enjoy this little patch at the end of your life here, right?
They call the golden years.
The golden years.
I don't know how it's golden years, because you get to that age, you're already, especially if you're in manufacturing or anything where you're working in some harsh elements. You don't make it a year in that golden year.
Tim Ferriss talks about you got these phases, right? You're young guy, and you got lots of energy, high E, lots of time, no money, right? We'll put it. You get to middle age, and you got lots of energy, you got money, but no time, because you're trading your time for dollars, right? This is the middle age. And then you got retirement, or you get old, right? The old guy here, crappy stick figures. And you got no energy, but you got a lot of time and a lot of money. And so his argument is, why can't you have all three right now, right? When we're just going to assume most of our audience is here in the middle age, right? Why can't we have energy, money, and time all working for us, right? And I think, to your point, that's kind of, we see a shift that's happening, and technology has bridged the gap, and it's torn this veil, this corporate veil that's kind of been built up, where the gatekeepers, right, they're the ones that run the systems, that the shared knowledge to actually build a business and have something sustainable. Like, many of our parents might have had small businesses, right, but we didn't have the keys to the kingdom, right? But now technology has just wiped this away, right? And it's really bridged the gap. between the haves and the have-nots. And so my claim is that there's more opportunity at our fingertips, and even just looking at our phone, where you have access to any and all information you could ever access or need right here on your phone, where 30 years ago you had to go to a public library to browse through the indexes just to find an answer to something. You can go to Google and get that spit out in a minute, 30 seconds, right? So the opportunity is here, and people see that, right? So stop wasting time and get out there and get that money.
Exactly. I think it's definitely times have changed, because I remember, even 25 years ago, if you wanted to go see a house, you actually had to go into the real estate agent's office. They would take you around all the houses. Now it's like, boom, you see it with your phone. Pictures tell everything now.
Virtual tours.
Right, that's what we were talking about is, you got to pull every card out now. I think that's what's going to happen. And nothing against the agents or real estate agents or anything now, right? They're got to work a lot harder. All right,
Most
it got
of
a
them
lot easier.
get chased out.
Yeah, in Charleston we've got about 7,500 to 8,000, I believe. Right, so I don't know what that correlates in terms of how many are going to be still actually active in the market when all this stuff goes on. Because I think this is, we talked about it's going to last a year to 2 years, and that's why I think a lot of the marketing now, you're going to see ARMs coming back on a lot of the mortgages. You're seeing. The promotions are, look, you buy the house, you're not buying the rate type thing, you're marrying the house, because interest rates will go down.
Yeah.
It's not like anything else that's fixed. It's like that will go down. Interest rates will. But the house price, I'm telling you, it doesn't matter. In a natural market, you're 3 to 6% appreciation a year, give or take. So it will continue. Real estate is appreciated over the decades to a point, but that rate will eventually go down. I don't think it'll get down to 2.5% again. I think 4.5%. 4 to 4.5%.
So let's talk to the person that's sitting on the sidelines, but they're thinking about, man, real estate sounds sexy. It looks good. I'd love to get into it, but I just don't know if the timing is right. What's your best advice to a beginner, somebody just looking to branch into the market? Mm-hmm. Where do they start?
Well, the resources, go into some of these RIAs. I mean, you're getting to learn behind some guys that have, kind of just taken some of these classes, understanding, get the knowledge. Knowledge is key, right? I mean, you can't take away knowledge from somebody. Yeah. So you learn behind guys that have done this for years and years. A lot of people, of course, always go to bigger pockets. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But some of your local guys that you speak to, you start networking. Because in this game, it's all networking. Just like you and I meeting, right? It's a networking thing, us talking here today. I would say starting out, I would definitely look at maybe JVing with somebody that has that experience, that's willing to take you on. Not going out and throwing out $300,000 because you saw it was cool on HDTV. I would take that conservative approach, and once you start doing joint venture deals and you start kind of getting the hang of it, maybe you find a smaller deal. It's all about risk and exposure at the end of the day, right? That's the same within lending, right? There's some lenders, I'll give an example. You got some that'll do 100% financing, some that do 85%, and it all has to do with the market. We are seeing a market squeeze a little bit because the interest rates are rising, and there's bigger risk, right? And a lot of it has to do with historical data. Looking at '08, the luxury market first thing to go. I think a lot of Columbia's local markets between 250 to 450, maybe, give or take, $250,000, $300,000.
Somewhat
market.
Luxury market, you would say?
So I'm just saying in general, like the average
home
price of a homes are about.
I'd say now it's probably 200. I'd say 200 to 350.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
we're a bit behind Charleston.
Yeah. So that's in that price point, right? And it all has to do with the commerce around you. What type of jobs? How are they employing? What is the average pay rate? Right? Because that, like we talked about, it all depends on that payment at the end. People have to look at it, and even the mortgage companies, they're going to look at it as, are they meeting that 47% threshold or whatever that percentage is of debt to income? Because we all understand you don't normally just have a house payment. You got all the other bills that come along with it.
Yep.
So, but, when I would say the newer, not trying to segue too far, the newer borrower, like newer investors that are trying to get in, I would start educating yourself. Yeah. Right. And even guys that have been in this 10 years are still going to conferences and listening, because there's some things we don't know everything. If we did, we would be perfect. Yep. So, continue to keep being educated on it, and then maybe find a small deal. It doesn't have to be a $200,000-$300,000. It might be an $80,000, 900 square foot house that you can throw $25,000-$30,000, get a good contractor that has a lot of reputation, see if they'll do it for you, and start that process. You don't have to go out and buy a huge house right off the rip.
That's good. That's good. So the biggest things I pulled out from that is the power of relationships, right? Like relationships are everything in this business. They really are. And joint venture, right? For you, those of you, JV means joint venture. It's just a business partnership, business relationship. And it all kind of intertwines, right? Like get in the circle of people that are already doing deals, that have already achieved the results that you're seeking, right? Seek to grow, learn, and add value to them, right? Don't just come as a consumer trying to suck as much information as you can, like, oh, what can I get from taking Ben out to lunch or something, right? But what value can you add to what they're already doing, right?
Exactly.
An experienced person in the industry is going to see that, right? And they're going to obviously give you that same value in return, right? But yeah, figuring out where that sweet spot is, right? Your middle income housing, because there's never going to be a shortage of buyers, at least in this market, with the demand for that middle income housing.
Yeah, and the reason why you've seen the increase in the pricing too, a lot of it is because you are seeing there's so much factors that are going into what's happening, and it's just been COVID transitioned this economy in a way I don't think people thought was going to happen. The remote jobs and everything went up because I was at remote at the time working. And it changes a lot of things. It changes your perspective a lot too. You get a lot more time. Yeah, I mean, just in Charleston alone, and Columbia, it looks like the same way. Traffic. I mean, you spend an hour and a half, 2 hours a day on the road just to get there and back. So now you've got that time back that you can spend either with your families or starting a side business, whatever the case may be. So we're seeing that a lot. I mean, especially I think South Carolina in general. You know, the big markets here, Columbia, Greenville, South Carolina, Myrtle Beach too. Myrtle Beach, like I said, it's different types of buyers that are buying in these areas. So yeah, definitely a lot of growth for this area, and you know, always a lot of room for newer investors. I mean, there's a lot of houses here that need a lot of work.
It's true.
And it'll never stop.
So at the end of the day, there really should be no barrier that's holding you or keeping you from where you are to getting in the game, taking massive imperfect action. Like you said, you're not going to get it all perfect, but you learn by doing. You learn by growing, you learn by failing, right? But you're going to learn more from the failures than any other point in your life, right? And those failures are going to help to add to experience. Experience leads to growth, leads to more strategic relationships, leads to more deals, more opportunities, and more joint ventures, and more money in your pocket at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Good stuff, man. Where's the best place for people to reach out for you, man? Do you have an ask for the network or value proposition for the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to us. We've got a full functioning website, shows everything you need to know. I mean, and of course, my local information. Am I allowed to provide that here?
Yeah.
You know, so you can contact me at, you know, my cell number, text, you know, anything at 843-860-5865. And love to talk with you. I mean, we've helped a lot of borrowers grow from, you know, doing 2 homes at a time to leveraging them to get to 10 a year to 20. And that's the growth, right? Because you're going to need capital in this game. I thought when I first started that it was going to be, I can save my cash and I can buy one and buy another. And I started looking at it, I'm like, okay, why not leverage somebody else's money, not risk all of mine?
Yep.
Right? To go out and grow what I want to do and succeed. You're going to need that in this market because real estate is a cash game.
It absolutely is.
It is a lot of cash to get into it.
Yep.
But that's where we come into play, you know, and then build these relationships like yourself, you know, and helping teach some of the newer investors, and same with like the RIAs. They'll kind of, you know, we'll speak to that.
Love it.
Right.
Good stuff, man. Guys, get out there, be great. That's
Appreciate it. Thank you.